Today we're going to be going over how to get the best loot in 7 Days to Die, but I do have to give you an unfortunate forewarning about loot in this game. 7 Days to Die is heavily RNG based for its loot. There's no like, go to this POI, find this amazing item, go have a sick playthrough. In fact, there are very few guaranteed spawning items in this game at all. Instead, we're going to go over how 7 Days to Die distributes loot, and how you can master the mechanic to get amazing gear as soon as physically possible. Let's jump in. Loot stage is this game's number value for deciding what loot tables give you. The higher the loot stage, the more of the higher level gear you'll find and the less of the weaker stuff. The magic number you want to hit in 7 Days to Die 2.0 is 205. You can find your loot stage number in this menu showed on screen. The base value of your loot stage is dependent on your level. If you're level 40 with no other boosts, you'll be loot stage 40. So yes, without any deliberate effort on your part, it will take until level 205 to actually hit the loot cap that you want to hit, where the best loot spawns. Naturally, that's extremely slow. So what can you do to improve your loot stage and thus hit 205 faster? Well, let's cover the biggest thing first. Biomes have different loot stage modifiers in 7 Days to Die. The harder the biome, the higher the modifier, thus the better loot you will find. The burned forest is plus 50% plus 5, which means that your level 40 character here will be loot stage 65. The desert is 100% plus 10, taking us to 90. Snow is 150% plus 15, which brings us to 115. The wasteland is 200% plus 20, which brings us to 140. So naturally, the first thing you should do if you want the best loot is go to the wasteland. But do be aware that each of these biomes also carries a significant increase to your game stage, which is the mechanic that makes the game harder. So when you go there will be more high level zombies. It's a risk versus reward thing. And the best risk versus reward is the wasteland. Another useful mechanic to know though is the POI loot stage modifiers. In 7 Days to Die, there are 5 tiers of POI. POI tier is indicated by the number of red skulls you see at the top of your screen. Tier 1 gives a 5% plus 3, so our level 40 character becomes loot stage 45 in a tier 1 in the forest. Tier 2 gives plus 10% plus 6, so now we get to 50. Tier 3 gives 15% plus 9, so now we're 55. Tier 4 gives plus 20% plus 12, so now we're 60. And Tier 5 gives plus 25% plus 15, so now we're 65. What about in the wasteland though? Well, here our level 40 survivor goes from 40 to 140 for just going to the wasteland, and then you go to 165 for being in a tier 5 POI, with each tier being about 5 points less below that. So the POI is helpful, but if you want to go for a tier 4 over a tier 5 because they're more common and much easier and time efficient, that's not going to be a huge loss of loot stage for you. But our level 40 survivor is only at a max of 165. What can we do to get to 205? Let's find out. So first we have the scavenger armor or the rogue hood. Each of these will give you a 20% boost to loot stage. Obviously though, the singular level 6 rogue hood is easier to get and carry around than carrying around a full set of scavenger armor at level 6. For the exact same effect. So 99 times out of 100 just go for the hood unless you were planning on wearing the scavenger armor anyway. This takes our level 40 wasteland tier 5 character up to 198 already. If we can find a treasure hunter helmet mod, that'll give you plus 5 loot stage, which after all the modifiers will actually take us to 204. And to be clear, 204 and 205 have no major differences, so functionally you're pretty much there at the loot cap and can find the best gear quite easily. So theoretically, what's the lowest level we can hit that loot cap? Well, let's cover some other loot stage boosting stuff and see how low we can go. Eye candy can be bought at the vending machines and gives a plus 5 plus 10% bonus for 6 minutes when consumed. On top of that, we also have the Lucky Looter perk in the General Perks tab. This perk will give you plus 25% loot stage, which is very significant, but it does cost 10 skill points, and considering how low of a level we might be able to hit this loot cap, 10 skill points might be a significant investment for your character. It might be damn near half your skill points. That said, you can always refund your skill points with forgotten elixirs you buy from the trader, so you're never stuck with these perks. having wasted the points. There is also Charismatic Nature rank 5 in the Intellect tree. This will give your allies a 20% boost to the loot stage, but not you in single player, so that's something worth considering if you're playing on your own. So with all those things combined, what's the lowest level we can get to loot stage 205? So, with the Wasteland in a tier 5 POI with Eye Candy, a treasure hunter mod, 5 ranks of lucky looter, and a level 6 rogue hood, I was able to get to loot stage 205 at level 27. Now that's really good. If you put your mind to it, you can actually hit that in the first week. Not even all that hard, meaning by day 7 you could be looting amazing gear. So that's the hypothetical earliest point in single player at least. You can actually go earlier in multiplayer as well if someone has maxed out Charismatic Nature, but what's a more realistic approach? Tier 5s in the Wasteland with half your skill points invested in one skill and level 6 armor pieces before level 27 is pretty unrealistic for most players. So what's a more balanced approach that the average player can probably replicate without having to fully min-max? Well, let's go to a tier 4 in the Wasteland for a start, but with no rogue hood or a treasure hunter or the lucky looter perk. We do have eye candy, as that is very easily accessible. With this, we'll only be loot stage 135 at level 27, so that's not enough for what we need. If we do, however, throw in a relatively easy to unlock or loot level 3 rogue hood, we could get a boost of 6% up to 143. Still not quite enough. If you could then find the treasure hunter mod, it would go up by 5 more, but that's still, again, not enough. So what level do we need to be to hit 205 now with this setup? Well, we can hit 204, which as I said is perfectly acceptable for this, at level 42 if we have the treasure hunter mod, or level 44 without it. So a good compromise if you don't want to get the full maxed out rogue hood or maxed out lucky looter is Wasteland, tier 4 POIs, eye candy, level 3 or better rogue hood, and being level 42 with the treasure hunter helmet mod, or level 44 without it. You can definitely see the rogue hood and lucky looter have big impacts here, as it's over 10 levels earlier, but that's not that much different in playtime really. Now beyond 205 is more or less not useful to you. If you find yourself able to hit very high loot stages at any point, feel free to just go to a safer biome or a lower level POI and keep yourself as close to 205 as possible while minimizing the risk. There's no reason necessarily to go through the extra difficulty of the Wasteland if you're level 60 or something and are already hitting loot stage 205 in the snow biome, for example. Now, there's a little more to loot than just hitting the magic 205. Let's talk about the other significant loot stage numbers that may be of use to you. For example, maybe you're not interested in going straight to tier 3 guns as soon as possible, but you want to get past all the wooden shit as soon as possible. Don't worry, I got you. There are 4 loot stage tiers in 7 days to die. Tier 0, 1, 2, and 3. Tier 0 is all the primitive stuff like stone axes and wooden clubs. Tier 1 is iron tier weapons and tools, as well as tier 1 guns, which are like the pistol, the AK, the double barrel, and the hunting rifle. Tier 2 is steel tools and weapons, and the tier 2 guns, which are the tactical assault rifle, lever action rifle, magnum, and tactical assault rifle. And then tier 3 is your motor tools like the auger, and tier 3 guns like the sniper rifle, auto shotgun, SMG, desert vulture, and M60. Those are the major tiers that you need to keep in mind, and here is where these tiers basically are most relevant in the loot stage. You start off in tier 0. For tier 1 stuff, you will start unlocking it at loot stage 39, but it will peak at 125. For tier 2, this will start happening at loot stage 80 and will peak at 164, and for tier 3, you want to get loot stage 118 to 205, as we said earlier. Keep those milestones in mind for deciding what items you want to use. For this last section, we're going to talk about the best POIs that you should probably hit for your loot, as well as one other thing I almost forgot about in this video, which is perks outside of Lucky Looter which affect the loot you get. First thing you should know is that basically every high level gun you want to get can spawn in a tier 1 wooden crate to some extent. but it is more likely that you will get what is called a leveled item, or more than one leveled item, out of tier 3, 4, and 5 loot. And a leveled item is basically the things you probably clicked on for this video, so something like your gun. So the game might decide that it wants to give you a handgun, for example, and the type of handgun you will get is based off of your loot stage. So if you're low, you'll get a level 1 pipe pistol. If you're high, that will be a level 5 Desert Vulture with a little bit of random chance in between there. The way you can influence the loot tables is by taking perks related to the tool, weapon, or maybe the piece of armor that you want. And armor is kind of shaky because there's no way to specifically find the armor you want, but you can increase the chances of armor spawning. But for example, if you want to find more machine guns in loot, then put points in the machine gunner perk. Now, it's relatively well known, of course, that you get more machine gun parts and machine gun books from doing this, but it does also increase the amount of actual weapons related to the skill that you find in loot as well, such that taking 1 rank of these perks will double your chances of finding that specific weapon. And if you take 5 ranks, it will actually 10 times the chance that you find that weapon. So if you're trying to get, say, a level 6 M60, get your loot stage up to 205, loot any tier 3, 4, and 5 POIs. You can get it out of tier 1s, but it's more likely out of the higher level POIs, and your loot stage will be higher there, so it'll be easier as well. And then max out the gun skill that you want to increase the chances that it's the specific weapon you are looking for. And as one additional note you should be aware of, if you specifically want to get guns, first of all, any gun rack that you might find in gun stores or police stations are good, but another good option is actually police cars. And police cars are actually unique in 7 Days to Die in that they are the only container in the game that actually abides by the old 7 Days to Die myth. And if you don't know the old 7 Days to Die myth, it was that you got better loot by lock-picking containers compared to breaking them open. This is completely untrue for every single container except for the very recent addition, the police car. If you break your way into police cars, not only will you be attacked by a massive horde of zombies, you will also get worse loot. So if you can, do use lockpicks on police cars, and these have a very high chance of spawning gun related loot, which means they're an excellent way to get high level guns, which also includes, by the way, the robotic turret and the robotic drone. So yeah, with all that information, you should now know how to get your loot stage up, where to go and what POIs to hit to get the best loot, and what perks you need to take to adjust the specific items you want to get. If you found this video helpful, a like and a subscribe would be greatly appreciated for more content like this. And if you found it helpful, why not check out this video popping up on screen while I show you how to get the absolute best deals at the trader, which is another decent way to get good gear. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.